Hello and welcome to Behind the Red Curtain. Well, when you're talking about legends of the Australian musical theatre industry, you cannot get much bigger than today's guest. He made his name playing the role of Javert in the original Australian production of Les Mis, and he's gone on to forge a stellar career for himself. He's won 3 Olivier Awards for his work on the West End, and he's earned for himself a legion of fans across the globe. Would you please welcome our special guest, Philip Quast.
My God, look at that.
Now you can.
No, I won't.
You can
I'm
have
off
one.
Carbohydrates.
Oh no. It's so good to have you here. I have been looking forward to this so much. You are certainly a hero of mine in the theatre industry, and I know for so many of the people here who look up to you. And today we're going to dissect your life and career. We want to find out how you have achieved the things that you have achieved. And I want to go right back to the start. You grew up in Tamworth, is that right? You were
Yes, I'm...
Tamworth represent.
Yeah. I went to a one-teacher school.
Yeah.
There was only 14 in the whole school. I was
Really?
the only one in my class, and I grew up on a mixed farm, but predominantly a turkey farm.
Wow.
And it's still there. It's still owned and run by my father and my brother.
Wow.
And I like going home.
When you grew up on a farm, I mean, was acting and theatre a part of your life at that stage? Was it something you considered? Were you a really dramatic kid? You know?
No, but I suppose because the only friends I had were my siblings.
Yes.
And you spent a lot of time alone and a lot of time working. When you grow up on a farm, you know, I was driving a tractor at 9.
Yes.
And I remember very clearly my father putting me on a tractor at 9 years of age. It wouldn't be allowed now. Putting it in second gear. I was too small to reach the pedals, and he would jump off and leave me to go round ploughing for 2 hours, and without power steering or anything.
Oh,
wow. And then come back later on and jump on the... And I think I sort of developed this, I suppose, a fantasy world. You know, I imagined that I was dragging a trawler across an ocean, and I was, you know, trawling for fish with a plough, and
Yeah.
I used to do things like that. And,
Yeah.
and I can even recall a really silly incident, although I wrote a black and white movie script for it. I loved the water, but we were nowhere near it, and I loved fishing. I've got a Shimano fish.
Yeah.
I can remember when the wheat grew and it was green and waving. You know how wheat waves in a field?
Yes.
And at Christmas time, or no, one of my birthday in July, I got a pair of goggles and flippers with a snorkel. And why would you get a pair of goggles and flippers when you live in Tamworth? You know?
What are you going to do?
And I remember watching the wheat, and so I could use them for the summer holidays in Surfers Paradise. We used to come up for 2 years at Surfers Paradise, 2 weeks at Surfers Paradise every year when I was little to go water skiing, which is now all built out, I suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing the wheat waving, so a very clear image of sitting on a strainer post in the paddock and putting my goggles and snorkel on and flippers and jumping off and swimming through the wheat and then popping up. So if you looked at it from a distance, and out in the middle of nowhere, you would have seen a boy with a pair of snorkels and the goggles popping up, and I'd go... fog up, take it off, and put it down, then go, and then duck and swim. So it was that strange sort
Imagination.
of imagination.
Yeah.
But also growing up on a farm, I love the rehearsal room. I don't like performing so much. But the rehearsal room is everything to me because it's problem solving and it's teamwork, and it felt exactly the same as working on a farm where you work together as a team to make something grow or achieve something, you know, whether it was shoveling shit literally or ploughing, and somehow at the end of the day there would be a harvest or you would achieve a job, you know, and then you'd come together as a family in the evening and you'd talk about your day and what you'd done. There was a sense of achievement for physical labour. And that sort of relates to the rehearsal room for me.
You don't like performing, but you like rehearsals.
When I say I don't like performing, it's not about the audience. It really is the struggle to try and find may have a different attitude to a lot of people, but to try and find, I don't believe in character.
Really?
Yes, I believe it's trying to find the autobiographical parts of those words that person speaks in me.
Yes.
That I find the part of me that would say those words, because we're not made up of one person.
Yes.
We are made up of lots of different characters in different situations. For instance, when you are with your parents, you speak one way, and you close your bedroom door and you go online and you're saying fuck and you're swearing, and if your parents heard the way you speak, they'd be horrified. And then you may change the way you are for different people. Human beings, chameleon-like, we change our colours depending who we're with. So when I say I don't believe in character, I'm trying to look at a part and go, how would I say those lines as me? And the rehearsal period becomes a way of making those lines truthful to me. And that doesn't quite answer your question, does it?
No, it does. I think what's interesting to me is your focus is on the process. I was just thinking then you wouldn't call yourself an entertainer in the way that some people perform to be in front of the audience in a show pony kind of way, I suppose. Your interest is in discovering something in the rehearsal room. Is that what you mean when you say?
Well, I think you really have to look at the longevity of the great entertainers. In the end, they are themselves.
Yeah.
Judy Garland, for instance, lived herself on stage. No matter what was going on, she brought everything that was going in her life on there. Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, those sort of people, and nothing has changed. The people that become performers and clone themselves to be like so-and-so will last a second.
Yeah.
There's also the danger, of course, that if you live your life at that level, that a lot of those people had tragic lives, you know, be it Janis Joplin or whatever, you know, that you burn out and you don't survive.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean to say you live your life that everything is important. I think all the great performers were filled with curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be forever curious about everything. That cooking and how you create a meal relates just as much to how you sing a song as anything else. How I get under a restaurant and I think, how is that table made? How does that joint go in? How did they put that together when that's a hidden joint? Because I like carpentry.
Yes.
And I dream about how to make something.
Yeah.
I wake up and I go, and it might take me a couple of days, but I wake up and go, oh, they put that leg in there first before they could put that on. And when you see how things are made and put together, so I would encourage, my life has been about exploring everything at once, as if I had a century ahead of me, as such. And that sort of translates into what you do. If you become single-minded about, I'm going to be an actor and I'm going to musical theatre, and on the way, how can you be a performer if you have no idea how human beings work?
You're like Buddha. I just feel like I just want to have a pen and write all of this down. I think that's brilliant. You mentioned you were at NIDA, and you trained at NIDA.
Yes, I did.
What did that training teach you?
Well, it has changed drastically, because when I was at NIDA, I think I was in first year when Mel Gibson and Judy Davis were in third year, and then I've just recently been working with Hugo and Richard Roxburgh, and Hugo was in first year when I was in third year, and then Richard was a couple of years below that. And we learned to drink a lot, as young people do.
Yes.
There were different types of drugs, but we were much more political, really passionate, you know. I got arrested for protesting, but that doesn't happen as much anymore. You know, students don't protest in the same, you see them in other countries, in Egypt and protesting. We didn't do any film and television. We did 2 weeks. Now you have to have, you know, they do film at the same time, but the basic rules have not changed, that you have to do voice every day. And even now, it's boring as anything, but I try to do an hour every day, even when I'm not working. I siren every day.
Really?
I try to learn. I've got a couple of memory exercises that I do to try and keep my brain going. I try to drink with my left hand because I'm right-handed. I try and text with my left hand and not just my right thumb, or you do two thumbs, but try and mix it up. I clean my teeth with the other hand.
What does that achieve?
Well, because, again, I've just done this play, Waiting for Godot, and there's a line in it that says, habit is a great deadener. Habit is a great deadener. Now, our brain is made up of neuroreceptors and different pathways. Now, when someone has a stroke, they relearn to speak by using other parts of the brain, and you open up new wiring circuits. So in order to make your brain active and more, you have to exercise it.
So brush your teeth with your left hand.
Brush your teeth with your left hand.
I'm so going to do that tonight.
And mix it all up, because otherwise you just get into a slot. And how that then moves into acting is that you end up not extending yourselves as an actor, because you end up acting through habit, and you pick up mannerisms, and no one will tell you that you've become mannered. But we build up lots of little habits, and the habits are there because we're all often driven by fear. We're driven by fear that we'll be found out, that I'm really a fake, or I'm not as good as someone else, or that I will fail, or I'll forget my lines, or is my voice going to go, or I will fuck up my dance step, and and that in the lineup I will stand out because I messed something up, or they're behind the beat, and the fear of being judged, especially now, there's a great deal of pressure that puts fear into us. Now, fear is a great thing that drives us along, but we also we don't need it to inhibit us, because as performers we want to be free. So we're working always against habit.
Yeah.
And one of the ways I've tried to avoid habit is never to do the same thing twice.
Whatever.
So well, when I say ever, is that I don't regret anything I've done, ever. Or I don't regret anything I haven't done, because you have to live in the present, and to regret what you did in the past is a waste of time. To think I'm going to do that in the future is a waste of time, because when it doesn't come, you're disappointed. You have to test yourself all the time. You have to test yourself and push yourself. And there is a danger, if you're an athlete, of an injury. But we were talking earlier before. I also, when I say I do an hour of voice every day, I'm not as physically fit as I should be. I'm overweight, but I don't sort of mind, because I try not to worry too much about aesthetics. I can't have vanity, because if I'm vain, that's what will come over.
Yeah, that's good.
Vanity is a terrible killer as well. Okay, we all have to be good looking, we have to, but if you are yourself, you're way ahead of other people who will look fantastic and be worried, because I can see when an actor is vain on stage in a second, a half a second.
As in, you can see when they're thinking about what they come across like.
What they come across like, how they sound, that they're conscious of their voice, that they're listening in a half a second. And a lot of my work is to strip that away and just say, look, it's okay to be you. Okay, so we talk about doing voice every day, and exercising the mind, because it's very easy. I used to know, for instance, about 47 phone numbers off by heart.
Wow.
Who knows 15 now?
I don't even know my own phone number, and I'm not even joking you. Yeah.
Who knows 15?
No.
That's very rare, and you might be a little bit older, I'm not sure. And partially because it was physical. Yes. Because you went beep, 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 or you dialed.
You had to dial it in.
You can use combination of now. Now, what is it doing to your brains if you go straight to favourites or you get ping?
Yeah.
What is it actually doing to how fast you think? When you don't see the numbers, how does that relate to you looking at words on a page and their relationship to each other?
Oh, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd never thought of that.
And how often, there are some people writing, and I don't begrudge iPads because they're so useful in the rehearsal room. I do a bit of both. I have an iPad here in my hand. If I need one hand free, I'll have a script planted over there, and sometimes I'll do the page turning because the actual relationship of the line on the page and the page turn has a physical memory.
Yeah.
I remember doing, I'm jumping all over the place here.
Oh, it's great. So we're loving it.
I remember doing Sunday in the Park with George, with Stephen Sondheim, years ago at the National. And I found my score recently, and I had it all bound because it's got his marks all over it. Little drawings, hangman he wrote because watch out, danger.
Really?
Yeah, stop signs.
He wrote it into...
He wrote it. He just grabbed my score one day because what he realised that I can't read music, although I can sort of see it, but I can't read the notes and sing it in tune. And I get into trouble when I have a tied note. So if I have a crotchet and a quaver on the page, I see that as two words, but it might be one word held for 1.5 beats. Does that make sense? So I have to learn it in another way. But when I got to, a line of music, I'd see the notes going like that, the words, but by the time my eye went from there to the next line, I'd lost a half a beat. And I'd get out of time. Or when I got down to the bottom and the page turn, I'd flip the page, and when I'd be singing, I'd go, ba-dum, ba-da-da-dum-dum, flip the page, and I'd be out of... So my score is filled with all sorts of little marks and little arrows, and he'd often write at the end of the line, he'd write the next couple of notes there. So all through the score, there are his little notations.
To help you.
To help me. Because he couldn't work out why I couldn't get certain rhythms. And because I learned in a different way.
Yes, that's right.
And that may be how I was taught at school or not taught. So
is that overwhelming? I mean, you were Sunday in the Park with George on the West End, and that was the first time Sunday in the Park with George had been on in the West End. Is that correct?
Outside Broadway.
And what's the pressure like? It's Stephen Sondheim. I mean, that's complicated music.
Yeah.
Did you feel pressure? Did you feel?
To be honest, I'd been an actor in the South Australian Theatre Company. I did 24 plays in 2 years. I came back and did a musical called Candide, which Cameron saw me in when I had long blonde hair and I was skinny, and I danced around. And then I did a whole lot more plays and a lot of television, and I'd started play school at that stage, which I did for 17 years. And then there's a bear in there.
Oh, thank you.
As well. And then I suddenly did Les Mis and then went and did it in London, and the next minute that came out. And to be honest, I really didn't know who Stephen Sondheim was.
Oh, but I think that's marvellous, that you had no idea what you were getting into.
And I didn't know what I was getting into, except it was like nothing I'd done in the terms of the complexity. Because I'm really a white honky who learned to count, who counts in 1 and 3. And not 2 and 4. I didn't understand when you went to a 5/4 in the middle of a 4/4 bar and there was something went to 2/2. I didn't understand that. I didn't even get the feel of it. But what I could do was I could see it. So what became important for me was learning how the conductor works. And once I saw what it looked like, I could feel it. Because so much of my learning was visual. Not that, because I had enough of it. So it's interesting because in a lot of acting schools at NIDA, I've just started saying I want someone to conduct the piano player in the rehearsal room. Because you need that conductor.
Certainly with Sondheim, you need a conductor.
You do. You need to know where one is. And if we do classes today, I'll explain it. But you've got to do. There are certain things in a song you have to do in rhythm. But that doesn't mean to say that there are sections where that beat goes on, but you can't play with it. But you've got to honour the music. But you have to know, in the sense of the lyrics, that the conclusion, you have to be on the beat there. And when you've got a good conductor, they're watching you, and when you're acting on the moment, and it might be different every night, you might just have a little glance, you might go da-da-da-ba-bum, and you look at them, and they know, and they scoop you up and go dum-bum. Do you know what I mean? And that'll make it spontaneous. Look, I'm jumping all over the place.
No, I'm just so loving this.
Just let me finish the habit thing. So, work very hard at not allowing habits to get into your brain. It kills relationships. It kills your creativity. you must extend yourself in the classics, because I have to tell you, there is nothing new. There is nothing new. It's all been done before. No matter what you think is the latest thing, it's just a version of what's been done before.
Yes.
So do things that, you know, and I try and force myself to read the classics.
Mm-hmm.
I have to, because I didn't read a book till I was 18. I didn't see
And when
the
you say the
theatre till I was
classics,
18.
when you say the classics, you would
Dante,
uh-huh.
Yep. The Odyssey, you know, all those,
That
you know,
stuff,
Virgil, go back, because they're hard work, and they should be hard work.
Mm-hmm.
But the satisfaction you get when you read Virgil and you learn how verse works and you understand iambic pentameter,
Yes.
because Shakespeare is the most important thing for musicals there is.
Yes.
The more you understand your Shakespeare, the more you will solve all your problems in musicals. Now, you know why? Because it's about form.
Yeah.
Once you understand iambic pentameter, and when it goes to verse, and when it goes to prose, that's no different to a musical.
Yeah.
It presents the same problems in Shakespeare. I'm talking to the audience, I'm talking to another actor,
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to God,
Yes.
and a new one, Shakespeare didn't have, is when I'm talking to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the excitement comes in Shakespeare of when you are jumping between those various ones and what choices you make.
Yeah.
So in a musical, you can be, if a person sings to the audience, it may be the wrong choice. Because really what they should be on that line is singing to that person.
Yes.
Maybe they mightn't speak to the audience at all. But in a musical, you often speak to God up there. Because in Shakespeare's time, so you went, oh, God, help me. You can't go, oh, God, help me. It doesn't work.
Mm.
So you have to know where you are, who you are singing to. And Shakespeare helps you solve that. It doesn't matter if you sing flat, in a sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Although it does. But
Well, eventually it does. Yes.
eventually it does.
Yeah.
Or worse, sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't hear often when I sing because something happens in my ears, buzzing. So what I do...
Really? You can't hear?
Sometimes, yeah, a lot of the time when I get really loud. Wow. So I have to learn to grab the piano or something in the gaps.
Wow.
You know, when I start going, bah, and it gets big, it sort of ceases to hear.
Yeah.
So I have to, when I get the little breaths, I hear beep in the orchestration or whatever, and I know I'm on tune. And if I'm not sure, I just increase my vibrato to cover all bases.
That's great.
Oh, the notes about there.
That's great.
I
I feel like I'm sitting here going, like soaking all
I talk
this
100
in.
miles an hour, by the
I
way.
want to ask.
I get so excited.
I have to ask though, because I find you so inspirational and intelligent and all those things. What I have to know is, what is it about play school that made you want to stay for 17 years? It seems so opposite to what you're talking about now. What was it?
A sense of play, because it was all shot in one go. They
Yes.
didn't stop. Working with Noni Hazelhurst, who's an extraordinary actor.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Extremely intelligent and wicked and dirty and funny and witty. And there are things on there that I was dared to do. Max Lambert once said to me on a thing where he said, we did a play school special, and you remember who Richard Wherrett was?
Of course I do.
And you maybe don't. He ran the Sydney Theatre Company and sort of built the wharf. And Max dared me one day to do warm kitty, soft kitty, little ball of fur, sleepy kitty, happy kitty, purr, purr, purr. He dared me to do it like Richard Wherrett. So I am lying down with my tail in my ears, and I go, warm kitty, soft kitty.
That is gold.
Yeah. And it's there for perpetuity, but it was our little joke. But there was a lot of jokes on Play School because we were able to have fun.
Yes.
And then we get to the element of, in all the seriousness and the desperateness of what we do to get it right and to have fun, you finally have to have fun.
Yeah.
And yet respect, because if you have too much fun, you bugger up other actors.
Uh-huh.
You have to play.
Yes.
Play. Why is it called a play?
Because you're playing. Yeah.
Because you are playing.
Yeah.
That means it has to have all that freedom
Yeah.
of a tennis match. You don't know which way it's going to go, but there are rules. And the rules are that it goes 15 love, 30 love, deuce. It juggles, but finally someone wins a point.
Yes.
And that happens in a scene. You're going, ba, 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 win a point.
Yeah.
That actor has to change tack.
Does that mean every night is different for you? Every
Yes, it
performance
is.
different?
And sometimes in big commercial theatre, they don't like it.
No, I can imagine. Yeah.
But you have to know what you're doing, because I've been with people who are different every night for the sake of being different.
Yes.
And selfishly, because sometimes, often in a support role, you can't be different because you're not carrying the narrative.
Yes.
Only the person carrying the story and the plot can sometimes change it, because they might play something differently, but they know where the story has to go, bang, back on track.
Yes.
If someone who's not carrying the narrative and the plot shows off and pulls focus over here and does their own thing.
It's a selfish thing. It's
a selfish thing. The audience loses the story,
Yeah.
the plot. And the miracle of singing and play school, where you've got actions, I don't know whether you've ever thought about this, it is a miracle, because you are singing a song which has got a tune, so you've got notes. You are clapping, which makes it kinesthetic. Then you've got words on top of that, which rhyme. So you're doing a whole number of things at once, which you don't know you're doing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Now, when I went to a one-teacher school, I sang freely. You know, I'd listen to music of the air, and that's the kindergarten of the air, and I'd sing that sort of stuff in this little room. And then I got taught to start to count. And what I did instinctively suddenly became, and that's where I had trouble with rhythm. Because what I used to just do, dance, and kids do, suddenly I get into a formal education, and you have to say, you count 1, 2, and then you're in.
Yes.
And what I did by instinct suddenly became self-conscious. And it causes an acting problem. Because when I see people singing often, the intro starts, and what I get and I see, again in a half a second in their head, is you see an actor standing in the music, and really what I get them is doing. And all I see is the actor counting 2, 3, 4, go.
Yeah.
And then they really shouldn't be. They should be thinking. And it should just be seamless.
Uh-huh.
And in a second you can tell. So that introduction often is when I can tell when an actor's counting. No matter, even if you're smiling, whatever, I can see them going 3, 4. Because that's the thought you get, is someone going 3, 4. Because music and a musical and a song is more like film than anything else.
In what way? How do you mean?
Okay. A song is often, when I talked about who you're talking to the audience, because it's supported by music, lighting is often... Do you know why an intro is there often, or a verse? You know, in the old songs, you'd have a verse before you got into the song.
Yes.
That gave time for the crowd to go off in the story,
Yes.
for the actor to be left alone, for the lights to change, and you went from wide shot
Yes.
in a camera down, and the music in the intro is the camera coming in smaller till finally you're alone. And that means you can become stiller and smaller. And in a musical, with that supportive music and that light, you can act as small as any close-up film you want. And you have to know that the orchestration tells you the size of the camera shot. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you see it on those talent shows on television, when the camera's in here and they're still going like that, and it looks like they're overacting, because they don't actually understand through the lyric and the thought the size of the camera. Now, I know when I do film and television, I know exactly when I'm on a 50mm lens or a 35mm lens or whatever. And if you don't know, you ask.
Yes.
Because you want to know. And often the close-up comes when you're not speaking. So sometimes in a song, no, always in a song, generally, the close-up is not when you're singing. It's often on a thought change.
Yes.
Or on a piece of music within it. And what we often get is actors not knowing what to do in that moment. So if you're singing something like, okay, I'll give you an example, is the best thing.
Yeah.
So say in Les Mis, for instance, which you all know. So when Javert is singing Stars, he'd be there and he'd go, "You're the flame, the sword," right? The sword, and then suddenly you see the stars for the first time. Stars. That moment of silence when he goes, the flame, you know, if you die, who lives by the sword is going to die by the sword. There's suddenly a huge gear change. And then he goes, he's sitting there, they're going to live by the sword and die by the sword. They'll fall in flames. God, look at those stars. It doesn't come, the thought change comes so musically precise. Now if I go, the flame, the sword, stars, I haven't made that transition. But if it's the flame, the sword, and you have to time it perfect, the sword, it's too early. Flame, the sword, stars. You have to see them. Now that little silence is filmic. Does that make sense? Then at the end, when he's committing suicide, he's on the bridge and he goes, I am reaching, but I fall. So that's one thought. And the stars, that little transition there becomes the most, and it's so filmic and so small, but it has to be so musically precise because it relates to the other thing. Yeah. Because where before the stars had been his guide in the movie, suddenly he becomes aware of the abyss above him. And that's in the book. Suddenly, where before the stars had been his guide, suddenly he became aware of the abyss above him. So God doesn't exist. So I used to have to go, the flame, you know, whatever, the flame, the sword, fuck, the stars will be my guide. I'm like the stars. I guide people through oceans. I do all that. Then he looks up and says, you know, I'm reaching, but I fall. And the stars are black and cold. They're no longer guiding me. As I stare into the void of a world that can no longer hold my life. New thought. I'll escape now from that world. So suddenly he makes the decision that he's going to die. And it happens like that. There is no inclination anywhere in the script or the musical where Javert contemplates suicide ever until that moment, because he's lived his life for nothing. And it hits him like an epiphany.
Like a shot.
And it has to be that tiny and that truthful, no matter how big you sing. And the only way to get those moments is to slow the rehearsal down. Now we get to the most important thing. Because you learn quickly, you are at performance space on the performance level and speed at the first day of rehearsal. Most of you. And I'm not generalizing, it's true. I speak from experience because I've been there and done it too. And you've denied yourself process. There is a saying, learn slow, act fast. But you have to walk before you can crawl. We're under such pressure now that the person who gets the gig is the one who can pick up the step the quickest, but it'll never get any better through rehearsal. So you have to have the courage to slow yourselves down and explore those moments. Otherwise, you will get an actor singing on stage and it's just generalized. But it's those little moments, and in order to do that, you have to slow down and speak the lyrics. Because you have to replicate. Generally, the lyrics come first, are written first. Sometimes they go together. And then the composer, in Rodgers and Hammerstein's case, has to come along and look at the inherent musicality in those lyrics and give them their musical melody, space and length. Now, when you get Andrew Lloyd Webber, an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, well, he only writes the tunes. I don't know why it's called an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, but he writes the music first, and some poor fuck has to make the lyrics fit. And I'm telling you, the tunes are great, but somewhere always, without fail, you will have an acting problem.
Yes.
For instance, I did Evita for a year, and because I needed the money.
Yes. Well, thank you for being honest about that.
Well, I did. They paid well, and I'd done I generally, the big jobs that I've done like that, the commercial ones,
Yes.
Have been saved up so I could go and work at the chocolate factory for $200 a week, $250 a week for
Yes.
6 months, because that's what I needed, or, so I've had to do some commercial shows, but still do them well. But I used to sit there every night and listen to, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, Then you've got this line, the truth is I never left you. Now it sounds beautiful, but it's impossible to act because the tune was written and then the lyric was put in later on. Now that doesn't sound like it's a problem to you, does it? The truth is I never left you, but let's speak the lyric in that rhythm.
Yeah.
The truth is I never left you. That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
Now what is the sense of it? So the tune is dictating the sense of acting. You don't ever say the truth is, if you were to speak it, the truth is I never left you. It's not. It should be the truth is I never left you.
Yeah.
But that means it'd be a different tune. But you can't act that song, no matter how. So you get people going, oh, they love the song, they love the tune, but it makes no sense. And finally, in the end, it's the spectacle that moves you and the orchestration. But it's really hard to act. For instance, you get, hold me, is it hold me, touch me. Mm-hmm. Now, I know there are different times where he's had to go, but really it's onomatopoeic. Hold me, what else? Touch me. Now, if that's how you sang it, that's what it should be. Hold, touch. One is moving, the other is touching. Hold and, so one is hold, the other one is touch. And that's how you have to sing it, because if you sung it as hold me, touch me, it sounds nice, but it means nothing. As an actor, you go, hold me, what else? Touch me. And they are separate things. If you sing hold me, touch me, they're exactly the same thought. There's no musical difference. But one is punch me, hug me, or whatever. They are different.
Yeah.
Kiss me, punch me. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't. One is kiss me, punch me.
Yeah.
So we can't generalize, and you only discover that by slowing it down. Does that make sense?
I am very rarely lost for words, but you are blowing my brains out. Blowing my brains out. I want to talk about Les Mis really specifically, because Les Mis, can you understand this morning why this man's Javert is the definitive Javert? Do you understand? And Cameron McIntosh has said that himself. It has been said that your Javert is the definitive. You auditioned for that show, as I understand it, thinking that you might like to be maybe in the ensemble or...
I didn't know anything about Les Miserables because we didn't have, the only way I knew it existed was that people had been to London, as they generally did, and had come back and seen this fantastic show.
Yes.
Which is very flawed, but you've got to understand the etymology of it, the history of it, in that Trevor Nunn, who created it, was director of the Royal Shakespeare Company, so he understood form. The actors from that, a mixture of singing actors,
yes,
they improvised for weeks the scenes and did that, and gradually they worked out a way. And Trevor wrote the lyrics for On My Own, don't forget.
Yes.
And he also wrote the lyrics for Memory. It wasn't written by Claude Michel Alain, whatever. Yes. The tunes were there, but he had to write those. So he understood the proper stress and word stress. But he did a show with John Napier called Nicholas Nickleby, and it was taking this huge book by Dickens and condensing it with a huge ensemble and telling this incredible story. Yeah. So with Les Mis, Trevor took this political context of Nicholas Nickleby, he improvised that with all the politics of that, and when we invested it, we had to have a political stance on it, because Do You Hear the People Sing is not a jingoistic sort of, yay, let's go out and have fun. We used to sing it originally as the audience had to be chilled, that we, the working class, the starved and the poor, are going to rise up against you middle class audience, who have been able to pay how many thousands it is for this workshop here. You are going to be trodden on in order that we can eat. And the point was, at the end of the day, whatever it was, well, I can't remember what the lyrics are. When they came forward, we had to instill that with such hate for you that you had to be chilled. Now it's become this la-di-da-di-da.
Has it lost something?
That,
yeah.
And that's what you have to invest in it. To the point now where it's going to go on in China, and the Chinese are able to take the waving of the flag as their revolution song, but we know what happened when they did it in Tiananmen Square.
Yes.
They got blown away.
Yes, yes.
That's the irony about it. So we brought all that politics to that show. And here's another thing. We never sang a song in rehearsal for 6 weeks.
Really?
We spoke the lyrics for week after week after week, and we had separate music halls in the afternoon to incorporate the speaking of the lyrics. So we had to make it real.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I'm passionate about is how we get into a song and out of song in the same voice. I like to be able to make sure I sing in the same voice as I speak in.
Yes.
Because what you don't want is someone sitting there and going la 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 bah, because that's not how it works. Or that we have someone singing like that and they'll go ah. You want to make the transition from speech into song and back out seamless. When Trevor said to me, just speak the lyrics of How Can I Now Allow This Man, right? So just speak it. He put his arm around me, he said, just speak it slowly. So I went, how can who? And I'd have to say, how can I? Now, and he said, when? How can I? Now. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. And then I'd go, aloud. What? Allow. That means in order to allow someone, you have to have power. And then I suddenly went, oh God, there's assonance. How, now, allow. Did you know that was there?
No.
And you can't do that unless, so when you sing it, how can I now allow? And then you get it.
Yeah.
This man. Which man? This man of all men. So then we have antithesis. And the whole song is to be or not be. Every argument you have in a song generally includes antithesis because you're having an argument with that or that.
Yeah.
Do I eat that fattening thing or don't I? Do I have another drink or don't I? You are constantly in, do I sing loud, do I sing soft? You look at all the things in our language that are antitheses, like we've got black, white, we've got hot, we've got stop, we've got go or start. There are thousands. There's very, very few things that are in the middle. Median, average, normal. We've got abnormal, but there's very few words for down the middle. Yeah. So when you get, how can I, now, after all my life, allow this man to hold what? To hold, and Trevor would say, see if you can find another word for dominion. Now, dominion has the lion, it holds dominion. It has a sense of religion about it, doesn't it? Dominion. It's to do with kingdom, empire, earth, to hold. And he said, see if you can find another word. To hold power, no, that's not right. To hold sway, to hold what? Can someone think of another word? See how hard it is to think? So there's only one word it can be. What is it? Dominion. But if I sing to hold dominion, I haven't thought of the word. So I'd have to race ahead a little bit. To hold what? Dominion. I'd have to get a little bit ahead in the music to give myself time to find that word to coin it. Because I can't sing to hold dominion, because where does the word dominion come from? So I go to hold dominion over me. Do you understand? Otherwise, it's pointless. It's just a word that comes out. I'm singing it.
Yeah.
And then it has meaning because he is... Now, at the same time, I have to respect the music. Because if I backphrase to try and to hold dominion, it makes it passive. So I have to race ahead, and the conductor's got to know that not to follow me because he'll make up lost time and I can't find the word. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
So I'd have to race to hold what? And I often have an internal monologue. How can I, now, when, allow this man to hold what? Dominion over me. This what? This desperate. I can't go this desperate, so I have to go this desperate man. I have to look for the word. Desperate man whom I have what? Hunted. And hunted, H is the hardest sound in the English language. And it's hard on your chords, so you've got to find a way of doing it so you don't hurt your voice. So you go, ah, it's up there. And that's the same sound in the word. Every time Javert was mentioned, we all had to go, Javert! That hard. So you hear, I am knocking you, Javert! We always do it because it's devil or whatever. It's Javert! And that means run for your lives. So it gives him power. So this desperate man whom I have hunted. Now let's go on with the antithesis. He gave me my what? Life. He gave me what? Freedom. Now, my whole notion is that I've spent my life saying he can't have his freedom. And I'm now in confusion because he could have killed me. He gave me freedom. I should have perished what? By his hand. I should have perished by his hand. It was his right. It was my right as well. Instead, I live, but live in hell. And my thoughts fly apart. And as a result of that, my thoughts fly apart. Can this man be believed? One question. You've got to ask the question. If I go, can this man be believed? You've got to ask the question. Can this man be believed? There's no answer, so I have to ask another question. Shall his sins be forgiven? Still no answer, so I ask another question. Shall his crimes be reprieved? Still no answer. And we tend not to ask the question. But until I literally asked, can this man be believed? Nothing. Shall his sins be forgiven? No answer. Shall his crimes be reprieved? Another question, and must I now begin to doubt, who never doubted all these years? My heart is stone, antithesis, and still it trembles. Soft, hard, or hard, soft. My heart is stone and still it trembles. The world I have known, which is the world of the stars, is lost in shadow, antithesis again. So we're weighing up the scales of justice now, as lost in shadow. What's next? So I shouldn't have to sing this. I should know. I haven't done it for years. The world I've known is lost in shadow. Is he from heaven or from hell? So we have antithesis again, and it's a question. And does he know that granting me my life today, this man has killed me? So we have life and death. Even so. There's no answers to all those questions. So he goes, I am reaching, but I fall. And the stars, which now shone, are black and cold. I'll escape now from that world, from the world of Jean Valjean. Why? Because there is nowhere I can turn. There is no way to go.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Now, unless you juggle that, and I've seen so many people just sing it with emotion because they don't know how, and you have to work that hard on your lyrics before I even begin to sing. Otherwise, I can't invest. I have to gradually incorporate the music on top of that.
Is it hard for you to watch other Javers? I mean,
Well, I tend not to, and I tend not to watch myself. I must have watched...
Did you see the film? Have you seen
No, I haven't seen the film.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Okay.
I probably listened to the symphonic recording once because I only got to sing it. I had to sing it in one go, one morning before a... So I always... But the ones I like are generally the live recordings.
Yes.
So I think the 10th anniversary concert is interesting because we're all scared. We're under-rehearsed. There are 50 Javers who could take over from you behind who have lost their voices. And we just had to improvise it.
Yeah.
And we were all in different casts, but we had one thing in common, and that was Trevor.
Yes.
Where we understood, now that's
What do you think of him? I mean, I can imagine...
I think he's the greatest teacher,
Yeah.
and he has changed the shape of musical theatre
Yeah.
because he was able to bring all that Shakespeare and the classics and Chekhov and everything into musicals. And that's what you need. Until you can do your Shakespeare and Chekhov, you won't ever take your musical stuff to the nth degree that it needs to be. So I encourage you to go to the theatre, to see Chekhov, to understand Samuel Beckett. You know, just having done Waiting for Godot, I thought, gee, I should have sung that song like that.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I should have, because you make these connections. And it's all about making connections. That's what I said, you know, cooking. You know, I'm cooking a meal, I go to the markets and I go, oh, that'll go with that, that'll go with that, that colour will go here. I'll take that home, right? I will put that on there, that can cook. Oh, that's getting too hot, I'll take that plate off, I will do that here, I will move that there, right, now that's got to come, I mix that with that now, oh God, it's curdled, you know, that's sort of like how you rehearse.
Yeah. I feel really in awe of you. I don't feel like I'm often in this position.
Have a jelly bean.
How can I talk? No. It's just amazing.
Look, there's nothing to be in awe of because I have to tell you, I am no different to you now. Okay, I've got this experience and I talk about it, but when I go into a rehearsal, I'm exactly the same place as you. Having taught this year at night, I suddenly go into the Godot rehearsals and everything I tell students not to do, I do myself.
You do.
Because you have to start all over again.
Again, yes, it's
because
new.
it's a new director, they're new actors, they're new material. But having some sort of basic, and also, you know, if something doesn't work, you've got to be able to try another process. So sometimes I will, you know, I will do a drop-in, which means, you know, there's this acting thing where you think of it. Sometimes I will, you know, I will whisper the rehearsals, and you know, you've got to have a director allow you to do something. Sometimes I will speak in an Italian accent because I'm getting bogged down in habit, listening to myself. So you go, hey, no, and all of a sudden you will free yourself up in rehearsals, and then you go back and do it, and you suddenly say, I will free myself up in rehearsals.
You hear it differently.
And it'll just try and, so you've got tricks to break habit, the great deadener, but I have to start at exactly the same place as you. But the one thing I will do is start further back than you will, because I'm just a little bit slower. Now that can be a hindrance to other performers because they might work in a different way and they're waiting for me. And it's not being selfish on my part, but you can bet when I catch up that I'll be waiting for them because they will not have done some sort of process, and you will get aced every time in that sense. That's not to say I'm, you know, I did this play at the MTC last year called His Girl Friday, and it's speaking non-stop with Pamela Ray, but a hell of a rate, and it's really 30s stuff, you know, funny, wordy, absolute speed. Now on the first day of rehearsals, I'd read the play 60, 70 times before I started, 3 times a day or twice a day, and it takes 2.5 hours to read. And I had not learned the lyrics, I was just familiar with the rhythm of the whole piece. The whole piece. Even 30 pages of dialogue that I wasn't in.
Really?
I became aware of it so that I understood where I fitted into that part of the story. Does that make sense? Not just my stuff. You get to the rehearsal rooms, you're extremely familiar with it, but I kind of learnt it, my stuff, because I don't know what the other actor's going to do with it.
Yeah.
And when the line comes, if I've sort of learnt my stuff...
If you've made a decision before.
I've made some sort of decision. So I have to be open enough, and you'll be surprised how in rehearsal, because the other actor doesn't do what you want them to do, you start trying to manipulate
To
them and going,
control
or you
them.
go to the director, why are they doing it that way?
Yeah.
But you have to learn to
Make a connection.
make a connection
Yeah.
between them, and they can do whatever they want to do because that's what happens in life.
Yes.
So he's got Friday, I go in the first day, the other actor, no scripts, the younger actors, some of them are just out of NIDA, know their whole part. That's pretty scary. I look at my script, look at the words a bit, look up, say a bit of my line, look down a bit, deliver a bit more of my line, and before I can even get it out, they go blah, 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 back with their line. And I go, and then I'm going, shit, I'm holding them up. What do I say to that? And they're ready to go because they're performing. But gradually you build up your neuro pathways.
Mm-hmm.
Try not to panic that you're going to learn your words in time, and then you get faster and you build up your agility and your speed. And I can tell you that at the end of 4 weeks, because they hadn't been through any process, I'm waiting for them.
Yeah.
I'm going, ba, 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 and they haven't learned to build up this speed.
Because you've gone the journey.
Because I've gone the journey.
Yeah.
Have we covered the lane?
We have. I have to wrap this up, but I always finish with 10 questions that I ask everyone who sits in that chair. So I'll
Try and
ask
be
you
quick.
and just say the first thing that comes into your head.
Yeah.
What makes you happy?
My wife and kids. And fishing. Because my mind stops.
Yeah. What makes you sad?
Alas, politics, narrow-mindedness, racism, sexism, misogyny, violence.
What's your favourite pastime?
Fishing and writing.
Fishing and writing at the same time.
Yep. Thinking.
Thinking.
Yeah, thinking's.
If you could have dinner with someone famous, living or dead, who would it be?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, there's so many people I admire. We'd all say Shakespeare, but that's I'd be fascinated to know who he was.
Yeah.
If he was the actor.
If he, that's right.
Yeah, that's frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is your worst habit?
Self-loathing.
Really?
Yeah, that's the one I have to battle with. You know.
Wow.
I don't think much. Yeah.
Gee, we like you. The best thing about you is?
I'm loyal and passionate.
If you could change one thing about yourself, it would be?
Not to worry.
That's a good one. What's your greatest achievement?
A happy family, I think. You know, happy marriage.
I think
you know, we just had my 33rd wedding anniversary.
Congratulations. Well done. Yeah.
And I still feel 18.
Yeah. You said before that you don't regret. What's your
No.
biggest regret? You don't have one?
No, absolutely no.
Good. Who, last one, who or what inspires you?
I suppose all the classics do. You know, I listen to Bach or Mozart and I read Shakespeare and I just wonder where that comes from. It's just where did it come from? You know, whether it was a collective consciousness or and Trevor Nunn. I think Trevor Nunn is an extraordinary.
He's an
man.
amazing man. I have to say, and I know a lot of us here, you came on to the television in 1981 on Play School. I was born in 1981, so
Wow.
I grew up with you, as a lot of us here did, admiring you. Just hearing your voice today, it's like going back to my childhood. It's very, very special. And I have to say to you, thank you so much for not disappointing today.
Oh, thank
you have been, hasn't he been amazing? Thank you for it. You're a wonderful man.